to. But before we get into that, let me ask you if you have any questions of a halachic nature which you wish to discuss. Yes, I see a hand. That was just a greeting hand. Okay, greetings. Okay, I'm going to put the material on the screen. Judith, do you have any questions of a halachic nature that we should begin with before questions?
So I have a question.
Yes.
Yes. So I'm totally confused about music on Sfiras HaOmer with musical instruments. I have no way to clarify this without asking a Rav to discuss it.
Well, what could be simpler? Usser.
Okay, so then how do I respond when it's happening
Yeah, but
all over the world?
let me speak more serious. Let me speak more seriously about it.
Please.
This is not a question which deserves a flippant answer. This deserves a serious answer. Here goes. There is no prohibition of music during Sfirat HaOmer.
No.
What there is during Sfirat HaOmer is a minhag to refrain from simcha. Now, some music might be simcha, other music might not be. Let's talk about the difference between different kinds of music. Some music is very sad. A funeral march performed well can move you to tears. That's not simcha. Cathartic it may be, but it's not simcha, and therefore no objection. During avelus, in general, if a family member has passed away, or this time of year when we have public avelus for the whole community. Sad music, fine. Now, what about music which is of a ruchani nature? What the poskim call dvekus, or music of dvekus, or music of hitromamut hanefesh, spiritual elevation. Well, if you're talking about music which has a spiritual, a ruchani impact upon you, that's not the kind of simcha we're talking about, and therefore that is fine. The kind of simcha that we should avoid during avelus in general, if a family member has passed away, or this time of year when we have public avelus, the kind of music that we should avoid is the music which is me'orer l'rikud, the music which makes you want to get up and start dancing. That's music of simcha, and therefore to be avoided. If the music is ruchani, fine. If the music is sad, fine. If the music is me'orer l'rikud, that's problematic. Now, of course, the same piece of music might have different impact on different people. Different people can react differently to the same music. It all depends upon how you react to the music. If the music is spiritually elevating for you, that's fine. If, on the other hand, the music means nothing spiritual to you, but makes you want to get up and dance, that's a problem. Now, all of this is from the point of view of the listener. Let's talk for a moment from the point of view of the performer. The point of view of the performer is very different. My favorite, well, everyone's favorite all-time jazz clarinetist was Benny Goodman. Benny Goodman was great, one of the all-time great musicians. When he performed Sing, Sing, Sing in Carnegie Hall, the people quite literally got up out of their seats and started dancing in the aisles. From the point of view of the audience, it was an event of great simcha. But from the point of view of Benny Goodman, It was hard work, incredibly hard work. He was sweating bullets to make every note perfect. In fact, a reporter once asked Benny Goodman, "What's your secret in performing so well? How did you master the clarinet so well? What's your secret?" To which Benny Goodman responded, "I don't have a secret. I have thousands and thousands of them. Every note has to be perfect." And the concentration, the intense concentration, the effort to make every note perfect, that's hard work. From the point of view of the performer, it's not an event of simcha. Afterwards, he can feel a sense of achievement. Afterwards, she can feel a sense of satisfaction for having performed so well. That's okay to feel a sense of achievement or satisfaction for having done a job very well. But during the performance, it's just a lot of hard work, intense concentration, and if you lose your concentration for a moment, then it's just not going to come out right. I remember listening to the flute teacher who taught one of my sons how to play the flute. And I would sit in the corner of the room and listen to the teacher teaching my son how to play a Mozart sonata or whatever it was that day. And the teacher would discuss with my son, let's talk about the first note. How are you going to play the first note? How should it begin? How should it end? Now let's talk about the second note. And let's talk about how the first note is related to the second note. Well, eventually they've discussed the whole bar of music. And then the teacher says, okay, play the first bar, 4 notes. And my son plays. And the teacher said, no, that's pretty good, but the C sharp should be more like this or more like that. And eventually, my son would play it the way the teacher wanted, go on to the second part, the next 4 notes. Eventually, the whole phrase is completed. And then the teacher says, okay, just play freely. And it sounds like he's just having fun playing freely. That's what it sounds like. But that's only from the point of view of the listener. Someone who understands what's going on understands that, there's a lot of concentration and a lot of work going on with each note to get each note correctly. From the point of view of the performer, even music of simcha, which is going to cause the audience to get up and dance without any spiritual connection at all. From the point of view of the performer, it might not be simcha at all. Well, bottom line, an event of simcha during Sfiras HaOmer should be avoided. It's a minhag. It's a minhag of all Yisrael. Different communities have different blocks of time during the Omer when they observe mourning, but it's a universal minhag and indeed should be followed. Not exactly the same as saying it's a halacha. Bottom line, music of simcha, namely music which makes you want to get up and dance, if that's the impact the music is going to have on the listener, without any spiritual dimension, that should be avoided. Now, let me just point out in passing that there's another kind of listener, the critic, the musical theorist, the one who listens to the music because he or she wants to figure out how is the performer doing that. If I listen to Jean-Pierre Rampal, in my opinion, the greatest flute player of the 20th century. If I listen to him performing Scott Joplin, well, there are 2 ways to listen to it. You can listen to it as, oh, it's fun. And anyone who doesn't want to get up and dance is probably partially deaf. On the other hand, one can listen to the music in a different way. How is he doing it? What exactly is he doing to make that effect? Well, if your interest is academic, if your interest is theoretical, if you're a critic, so that's not simcha, that's analytic. Okay? You have some, has that improved some understanding of music during periods of mourning? Okay. Before I turn to kashrus, let me ask again, are there any other issues that we should discuss first? Now, I'm going to get the kashrus stuff on the screen. Share screen. Click. No, nothing happened. Here. There it goes. Okay. What I propose to do is go through the words of the Shulchan Aruch together with the principal commentaries. Of course, these texts are definitive. These are the texts of the principal poskim upon which all rabbis depend. The texts are drawn from the Yoredei section, and as usual, I'm not going to bother to mention exactly the chapter number and the paragraph number because you have it on the screen, and you can check out my typographical errors by opening up a regular Shulchan Aruch. Here's what the Shulchan Aruch says. Dagim. The example of the Shulchan Aruch is fish, but it could be anything which is parva. We could be talking about fish or eggs or vegetables or potatoes or anything which is parva. Anything which is parva, shenit pashlu, o shenitzlu, kedera shabbatzah. If the parva food was boiled or fried in a in a fleishik utensil, rechutza yafa, yafa, but the utensil was clean. There wasn't any meat in it. It's just a fleishik pot, water, and potatoes, maybe other parva stuff, salt also. Just a fleishik pan with clean fleishik pan with parva stuff in it, oil and fish or whatever it is you're frying. Ein shum shuman tavukbo. No meaty fat is stuck on in the pan or in the pot. The pot is clean, nothing actually fleishik, no actual meat or meaty fat is not actually there. Mutar le'ochlam bekutach. It's okay to eat that parva food together with kutach. Now you're wondering what kutach is. Well, I happen to know the recipe for kutach. Kutach was immensely popular in antiquity and remains quite popular in certain parts of the world, in certain areas in Eastern Europe. It's still quite common. The recipe for kutach is as follows. You take a bowl, you put in milk. Then you sprinkle in breadcrumbs. And then you let it stand at room temperature for 2 or 3 days, and it ferments, and you have kutach. Don't try it with pasteurized milk that you buy from the supermarket. It doesn't work with the pasteurized milk you buy from the supermarket. You have to get raw milk straight from the cow in order for this recipe to work. In any event, kutach is something made with milk. It's melchik, and it's okay to take the fish, the pasta, the eggs, whatever it is, parva stuff, cooked in a fleishik pot. You can put it into the bowl of milk and eat it together. Doesn't have to be kutach. It could be anything with cheese, anything with milk, anything with butter. It's okay. You can put butter on the potatoes, which were cooked in a clean fleishik pot. Mishum dahave no sein tam bar no sein tam dehetera. The whole reason for this leniency is we're talking about no sein tam bar no sein tam dehetera. Let me explain this idea, and you'll understand how it works. We have a fleishik pot. In the fleishik pot is boiling water and pasta. or anything else which is parva. The fleischik pot is notain ta'am, gives its fleischik taste into the water. The water then gives the fleischik taste into the potatoes or the pasta or the vegetables, whatever it is, which means that the fleischik taste entering the food is twice removed from the original. Notain tam, bar notain tam, the giving of taste, the descendant of giving of taste, taste which is twice removed from the original. The fleischik taste goes from the pot into the water, and then from the water into the vegetables. That means that the fleischik taste, by the time it gets into the parva food, twice removed from the original, that fleischik taste is so weak that it does not the parva food, and the parva food remains parva. And as the Shulchan Aruch emphasizes, we're talking about the hetera. We're beginning here with a permitted taste, a kosher fleischik pot. If we were talking about a treif pot to start with, this twice removed leniency doesn't work if you start with something which is treif. But if you start with a kosher fleischik pot, the parva food cooked in there is parva, assuming that the pot was clean when you did that. That's pretty clear and straightforward. Now the Shach adds a very important point. What is one of the principal commentaries on the Shulchan Aruch, and all the big name poskim follow the opinion of the Shach. This is the mainstream view. What did the Shulchan Aruch mean when it said that the pot or the pan, the fleischik pot or pan, has to be clean? What exactly is clean? Amrinin, we say, mistama. Mistama means until there's evidence to the contrary. Min hastam, until there's evidence to the contrary. Lo haya shuman davuk bo, we assume that any pot or pan is clean until there's evidence to the contrary. Now, of course, there are two kinds of balabustas, two kinds of housewives. One kind is the super housewife, which cleans every pot and pan after using it. Then there are people like me, the opposite of a super balabusta. People like me clean the pot or the pan before using it rather than after using it. But still, everyone cleans the pot or cleans the pan. And although it's of course possible that the pan or the pot was not cleaned, that's unusual. In the majority of cases, in normal cases, the pot or pan is clean, has no actual meat in it, and therefore the chazaka, the presumption of halacha, is clean until there's evidence to the contrary. Someone calls up and says, Rabbi, I cooked the potatoes in a fleischik pot. Can people put butter on it now? Well, I ask, was the pot clean? Was there any actual meat or meaty fat in the pot when you cooked the potatoes? And they say, don't know, I didn't pay attention. Well, the assumption is all is well until you know otherwise. When the Shulchan Aruch said that the pan or pot has to be clean, the only time when there's a problem is if you clearly and definitively know that there was something fleischik in the pot when you cooked the parva food. Well, all this is an immensely powerful tool, and of course, the Shulchan Aruch is speaking only in one direction, cooking parva food in a fleischik pot, but exactly the same principles apply in the other direction, cooking parva food in a milchik pot. You have a milchik pot or pan which is clean, You cooked potatoes, vegetables, whatever it is, and then the question is, can you pour meat sauce over the parva food? The answer is yes, unless you know definitively that there was cheese or milk or butter in the pot when you made the parva food. That's the opinion of the Shulchan Aruch. Let's go one step further. The next paragraph in the Shulchan Aruch talks about Beitzah. Again, something parva. Doesn't matter whether it's really a hard-boiled egg or a fried egg. It doesn't matter whether it's an egg or anything else. Parva, vegetables, or whatever. Beitzah. Shenit bashla b'mayim b'kedera choleves. If the parva food was cooked in a milchik utensil, in this case, the specific example is a hard-boiled egg, but it could be a potato, it could be vegetables, could be anything. Mutar latet ota betoch hatarnegolet. You can take that hard-boiled egg, which was boiled in a milchik pot, and use it to stuff a chicken before you roast the chicken. Exactly the same reasoning. The milchik taste from the pot went into the water, from the water into the egg. Now the taste is twice removed from the original, and since we're starting with a kosher milchik pot, all is well. Afil lechatchila. Shulchan Aruch says you can even plan your cooking program. You can plan your meal in this way. You can plan what you're doing you have only a milchik pot available to boil the egg in. Go for it, and then stuff it into a chicken that you want to roast. No objection at all. Aval im nitbashla b'kedera im basar afilu b'klipa. But if there was actual meat in the pot when you were boiling when you were boiling the egg, if there was actual meat in the pot when you were boiling the egg, asur le'ochlo b'kutach, then you cannot eat that with milk, cheese, or butter. So the lenient parva food remains entirely parva if there was no milk, and if there was no cheese, and if there was no butter, and if there was no meat, and if there was no meaty fat in the utensil, all is well. That's the opinion of the Shulchan Aruch. And as you know, the Shulchan Aruch was written by Reb Yosef Karo, and he was a great rabbi on the Sephardic team. And therefore, the halacha which we have seen up till this point in the Shulchan Aruch, all this is the great Sephardic rabbis speaking. This is the opinion of the great Sephardic authorities. Now, what about the other team? What about the Ashkenazim? Well, the Hagah, the note added to the Shulchan Aruch by the Ramah, by Reb Moshe Isserles, he was from Krakow in Poland. He represents the Ashkenaz poskim, and he says, Yesh machmirim. Some people are stricter than what the Shulchan Aruch says. What that means is the Ashkenaz team is stricter than what the Shulchan Aruch says. B'tzliya, b'bishul, doesn't matter whether you're boiling the parva food or frying the parva food, it's all the same. Le'esor, the Ashkenaz authorities prohibit, no sein tam bar no sein tam. The Ashkenaz poskim do not rely upon this twice removed taste. Ashkenaz poskim prohibit that. Therefore, according to the Ashkenaz poskim, the egg, the potato, the vegetables cooked in a milchik utensil cannot be eaten with meat, or the other way around. Just the opposite of what the Shulchan Aruch taught us. The Shulchan Aruch, representing the Sephardic opinions, is lenient, permissive, 100% permissive, and the Ashkenaz authorities are strict. Haminhag le'asol lechatchila. And therefore, we Ashkenazim don't eat the parva food together with the other variety. If it was a milchik pot, we don't eat the parva food together with meat. If it was a meaty pot, we don't eat the food together with cheese or butter. Lechatchila, we try. Lechatchila means we try not to do that. B'diavad, if it happened, someone made a mistake. Mistakes happen. And someone put the egg boiled in a milchik pot into the chicken for roasting. Someone made a mistake and took the potato, which was boiled in a fleishik pot, and put butter on it. Someone made a mistake and took the vegetables, which were cooked in a milchik pot, and poured meat sauce on it. Someone made it. If it happened, mutar b'chol inyan. B'diavad, even the Ashkenaz poskim are very lenient. Okay, according to the Ashkenaz poskim, one should not rely upon the leniency of the Shulchan Aruch, and that means parva food cooked in one kind of utensil should not be eaten in the other kind of meal. If it happens, all is well. You don't have to do tshuva. The food is not prohibited, and the b'chol inyan in every respect. B'diavad, it's going to be good. V'dafka le'echol im chalav v'basar atzmo. The Ashkenaz chumrah is only a chumrah not to eat the parva food together with meat or together with cheese. Aval litnan b'kli shalahem mutar lechatchila v'chein nachagu. But to use the other kind of dishes, the other kind of cutlery, that's fine. The potato, which was cooked in a fleishik pot, you can eat it on milchik dishes with milchik cutlery, as long as there's no actual milk, cheese, or butter. The pasta, which was cooked in a milchik pot, can be eaten on fleishik dishes using fleishik cutlery, as long as there's no actual meat. The chumrah, the strict position of the Ashkenaz poskim, is not to eat the parva food with the other kind of food. But on the other kind of dishes, with the other kind of cutlery, no problem. V'chein nahagu, that's the minhag of the Ashkenazim. V'im haya hakli shenitbashlu or shenitzlu lifkam shelo haya ben yomo. Here comes one of the biggest principles in kashrus. Nosen tam lifgam. Lifgam, pagum means a bad taste. Pagam is a bad taste. Pagum means tasting bad. Something which tastes bad will never prohibit a mixture. What does that mean? If a piece of stinky, rancid pork falls into the chulent, chas v'shalom, it will never prohibit the chulent. Only a good taste can prohibit a mixture. A bad taste, ta'am pagum, never prohibits a mixture. And therefore, if the food has gone off, if the food is spoiled, sour, tastes bad for whatever reason, then it cannot prohibit a mixture. And utensils fall into two categories. Some utensils, whether they're milchik or fleishik, some utensils are ben yomo. Some utensils have been used within the previous 24 hours. Other utensils are Eino ben yomo, not ben yomo, have not been used within the last 24 hours. Now the halacha assumes, as the Ramah is teaching us, that the absorbed taste in the pot or pan, milchik or fleischik, the absorbed taste in the pot and pan in the course of time is going to spoil. Food spoils. Food gets bad. The taste gets bad after a while. The question is, how long does it take for a food to spoil? How long does it take for the absorbed taste to go bad? Well, there's no simple answer to that. It's a terribly complicated issue, but the halacha assumes, until proven otherwise, that once the absorbed taste has remained in the pot or pan for 24 hours or longer, halacha assumes that it's no longer lishvach, no longer a good taste, rather lifgam, it's now a bad taste. It follows, therefore, that if a treif pot, which had been used to cook pork, treifer than treif can be, and the pot has stood unused for 24 hours or longer, and is clean, there's no actual pork in it now, it's clean, and has stood for 24 hours or longer without being used, you're not allowed to use that pot because it's a treif pot, you're not allowed to use it. But if you did use it to cook kosher food, which could happen by mistake, if it happens, then the food is permitted because the taste being released by the pot is more than 24 hours old and therefore presumed, until proven otherwise, presumed by the halacha to be palum, not a good taste, and will not prohibit whatever you're cooking now. Now, of course, in the Jewish home, in the kosher kitchen, this happens only by mistake. A utensil, a treif utensil is put aside, you intended to kosher it, then you know, 90% of kashrus questions take the following form. My husband was in the kitchen and did such and such. As soon as you let the husbands into the kitchen, things go wrong. Right? This pot is treif and it was set aside. You're going to get around to koshering it at some point in the future. And then hubby comes into the kitchen and starts doing things and follows everything. If it happens by mistake, and it could happen, the food is going to be permitted. But think about a situation in which it's not a Jewish home, not a kosher kitchen, non-Jews, non-Jewish kitchen. Your next door neighbor is not Jewish. And presumably, the non-Jewish kitchen next door, all the pots and pans are treif. I mean, they cook all kinds of stuff, which is, well, they're not obligated. We have no interest in them keeping kosher. They're allowed to eat pork. We don't want to impose our Torah requirements on them unless they want to accept the Torah. But what happens if they cook kosher food, pasta? What's in the pasta pot? Water, pasta, maybe salt. All the ingredients in the pot are kosher. The pot is treifer than treif can be. It had been used for cooking pork in the past, but it hasn't been used for 24 hours or longer. The pasta is permitted. The pasta is permitted. Therefore, noagim heter lechatchila. Therefore, if we have two reasons for leniency coming together, if we simultaneously have two reasons for leniency, number one, it's no Saint Tom bar no Saint Tom. It's a twice removed taste, like the Shulchan Aruch holds. And we can add to that a second reason for leniency, namely the pot has not been used for 24 hours or more, then even the Ashkenaz poskim are lenient and hold you can eat the food with the other kind of food, with milk, cheese, or meat. Therefore, the whole difference between the Sephardic approach, slightly more lenient, and the Ashkenaz approach, slightly more strict, the whole difference between them is whether or not the pot had been used in the previous 24 hours. Now, as far as this is concerned, the shach and all commentaries and following them, all of the great poskim through the generations, have the following presumption, chazaka. What most people don't know whether the pot was used within the previous 24 hours. Someone calls up and says, Rabbi, cooked the potatoes in a fleishik pot. Can we put butter on those potatoes? Well, according to the Sephardic poskim, of course. According to the Ashkenaz poskim, the question is, was the pot used within the previous 24 hours? Don't know. Don't remember. The presumption, the chazaka of halacha, is that the utensils were not used within the previous 24 hours until you have definitive evidence to the contrary. The reason for this is very simple and straightforward. In most kitchens, not every utensil gets used every day. And therefore, the presumption of halacha is that any given utensil has not been used within the previous 24 hours and all is well. Now, bottom line, there are not going to be many cases where the Sephardic authorities disagree with the Ashkenaz authorities. The parva food cooked in the potato cooked in the fleishik pot. Can you put it on milchik dishes? Of course. Can you eat it with milchik cutlery? Of course. Can you put cheese or butter on the potato? According to the Sephardic poskim, yes, indeed. According to the Ashkenaz poskim, yes, if the pot where the potato was boiled had not been used within the previous 24 hours, you can put butter on it. And we presume that leniency is in place until you have definitive evidence to the contrary, which is unusual, and therefore, in most cases, Ashkenaz authorities will be in agreement with Sephardic authorities. Now, there's one big exception to this whole rule. Kol zeh kishamachal eino davar harif. Everything we've said has one big exception, and that is harif, something which is very sharp. Something which is very sharp. Garlic, onions, onions. You don't know anything about cooking. Let me explain to you something about cooking. Raw onions are sharp. Well, not very sharp. There are sharper things than onions, but in general, raw onions are sharp. If you ask someone who cooks, they will tell you that once the onion has been cooked, boiled, fried, baked, it doesn't matter how you cook it. Once you cook the onion, it becomes sweet. It's no longer harif after. The onion has been boiled, roasted, baked, fried, however you cook it. And therefore, the harif status of onions applies only when they are raw. It has nothing to do with our issue of cooking today. It's only to do with raw salads, things which have not been cooked. Other harif foods, like sharp peppers, retain their sharpness even when they're cooked. Something which retains its sharpness even when it's cooked, it's harif even when it's cooked. If it was a davar harif even when it was cooked, kagon shebishlu davarim harifim bekli basar. For example, hot peppers were fried in a fleishik pan. Afilu eino ben yomo, even if the pan was clean and had not been used in a long time. Osha dachu tavlin b'madoch shel basar, or if you crushed spices in the I forget which is the mortar and which is the pestle. You used a mortar, which is which? The mortar is on the bottom, I think, and the pestle is on top. You crushed the spices in the same mortar and pestle, a stupka, pestic. I don't know which is the pestic and which is the stupka. A stupka is probably what you push with, and the pestic is in the bottom, I guess. Well, if you use the same mortar and pestle for grinding meat, then the parva food, because it's harif, cannot be eaten with milk. Afilu b'diavad, this applies. Now here we come to a big difference between Sephardic cuisine and Ashkenaz cuisine. My tongue is very Ashkenazi. That's why I tend to pronounce Hebrew in the Ashkenaz pronunciation. And one of the elements of having an Ashkenazi tongue is my tongue does not do very well with harif foods. And in Ashkenaz cuisine, there's very little harif food. And the Ramah says, Lo mikre ma'achal davar harif, in order for a food, in order for a recipe to have the status of being harif, of being sharp, a little bit of spices doesn't do it. A little bit of black pepper does not make a salad harif. How much black pepper has to be in the recipe in order for it to be harif? Rakim kulo davar harif, rubo kechulo. Only if the recipe has a majority of black pepper in it does it have the status of being harif. Now, Ashkenaz kitchens do not do this very often. It's far more common in Sephardic cooking. The shog is a majority harif. Even Ashkenazim who like to use chrein, horseradish, with their meals, even them, it's majority beets. And even if it's majority chrein, the chrein doesn't become sweet, but the chrein does lose its sharpness if it's not very fresh. The harif, the sharpness of chrein gets lost very quickly. It's unusual in Ashkenaz cooking to have this problem of harif. In Sephardic cooking, it's more common. Okay, let's summarize the basic principles. Number one, for Sfaradim, as long as the fleshik or milchik pot is clean, parva stuff cooked in it is parva in every sense of the word and can be used in the other kind of meal, no problem at all. According to Ashkenaz poskim, if the pot was clean but had been used within 24 hours, then you can still use the parva food on the other kind of dishes with the other kind of cutlery, but not together with the other kind of food. B'diavad, if it happens, all is well and everything is permitted. If the pot was not only clean, but is presumably not been used for 24 hours or longer, then Ashkenazim are totally lenient and everything is permitted. Now, this leaves open one question. What happens? My mind tends to the fantastic. I always like to consider the weirdest, most bizarre, unlikely, hard to imagine cases in order to clarify the halacha. I know this is not really going to happen in the real world, but consider the possibility of an Ashkenazi being invited to eat in the home of a Sephardi. And they're serving potatoes. And, the potatoes are being served together with butter or cheese. And the Ashkenazi looks at this and says, were these potatoes cooked in a fleshik pot? Well, yes, of course, the host says. Was the pot clean when you cooked the potatoes? And the host says, of course, yes. Had the pot been used within the previous 24 hours? Yes. I just used it for chicken soup, but then I cleaned it after the chicken soup to boil the potatoes. Ah, for the Sephardi hosts, there was, of course, no objection in putting the butter on the potatoes. But now, what about the Ashkenazi guest? Well, the Ramah taught us that the whole chumrah, the whole strict position of the Ashkenazim is only lechatchila. If you are preparing the food, you should not prepare the potatoes in a way that you're going to put butter on them. That's lechatchila. But the Ramah taught us that according to the Ashkenaz poskim, if it happened, then after the fact, all is well, and you can eat it, and therefore there's no objection at all to the Ashkenazi eating the potatoes in the Sephardic household, which were cooked in a clean fleishik pot, which had indeed been just previously used for chicken soup and was cleaned after the chicken soup before boiling the potatoes. That's the opinion of the Ashkenaz poskim. So far, so good? Okay. We should also discuss one other opinion, namely the Chai Adam. Where is it? The Chachmas Adam. Where is it? Here it is, the Chachmas Adam. Chachmas Adam, his name was Rav Avram Danzig. He was originally from Vilna, in what used to be called Prussia. He ended up in Vilna. You know, the maps change from time to time. Nowadays, we think of Germany as being pretty far away from Lithuania. But it wasn't always so. And until the end of World War II, Germany was right next to Lithuania. The old Prussia was just adjacent to Lithuania from Prussia. It was a 45-minute train ride to Vilna. They were right next to each other in the old. In any event, the Chachmas Adam, he was originally from Prussia, but he ended up in Vilna. He says, "Asur lechatchila levashel b'kli she'eno ben yomo kedei la'achla b'chalav. Deno sein tam lefkam asur lechatchila." The Chachmas Adam and many, not all, many Ashkenaz poskim follow the Chachmas Adam on this point. The Chachmas Adam says that Ashkenazim should not plan their meals in a way that they're cooking the potatoes or the parva food in one kind of utensil and planning to eat it in the other kind of utensil, in the other kind of meal. One should not plan to do that. If one boils the potatoes or fries if you fry the parva food in a milchik utensil intending to eat the food in a milchik meal, and then for some reason you change your mind, or there are leftovers and you want to use the leftovers in a fleishik meal, that's fine. But one should not initially intend to do that. This is the chumrah of the Chachmas Adam, and many, but not most, Ashkenaz poskim follow this chumrah. Tov, with this, I've summarized the basic approaches of Sephardic and Ashkenaz authorities. I want to pause with this and ask you if you have any questions you want to ask. That's it for today? Okay, Judith. That was just a wave for Judith, or that was okay, just a wave. I wish you a good week and eventually a Shabbat Shalom. Look forward to seeing you all again next week. We're going to continue talking about issues of kashrus. Next week, I want to talk about sponges, or what you use to clean the dishes. What happens if there's a mix-up in cleaning up the dishes. We'll get to that next week. Until then, shalom, shalom.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. The great
Well,
Shabbos. Thank you.
good Shabbos.